Hello and welcome to Tabletop Oddity. My name is Jay, and today I'm going to be looking at how well Star Wars Legion is selling. Well, not really, because we don't actually have sales figures, and it's not just Star Wars Legion. It's the top 5 non-collectible miniature lines. Basically, there's a website. I think they do like an official, I want to say magazine, but it's more on the finance side of things. It's like a publication. It's called ICV2, and they do it for all kinds of geeky sales figures. Basically, they talk about comics and all that kind of stuff. And every quarter, they release a chart that basically is just 1 to 5 in how well these are selling. Now, it doesn't actually have sales figures, and the way that it is, the way that the figures are actually how they come to these figures is not. It's not exact sales figures, because they basically just talk to, well, it says here, interviews with retailers, distributors, and manufacturers. So they basically ask people who are selling this stuff, how well is it selling? So keep that in mind. Also, I've definitely noticed that there tends to be a lag from when I would say something is popular to when something actually is popular. For example, when the Dark Imperium came out for 40k 8th edition, X-Wing was ruling the roost. Was logically and sensibly, everybody was like, it's probably Warhammer right now. And I don't know, there seems to be a bit of a natural lag. Obviously this was spring, so you could say that's March to June, but I feel like they're more reflective of the previous 6 months, say, rather than just the last 3 months. Anyway, let's look at the chart. Number 1, Warhammer 40k. Number 2, D&D Noisiest Marvelous Minis. I'm going to ignore that one. I'm not even sure what that is. I think it's just minis for D&D, but I'm not 100% sure, because I looked at the collectible one, and that had D&D miniatures. In fact, while we're here, let's Google it. Let's have a look. Yeah, I think it's just minis for D&D. I'm not. Maybe there's an extra game that goes along with that, but I'm ruling it. I'm ignoring it. A very interesting one to me is War Machine, because in my head, I anticipated Star Wars Legion bastardizing the marketplace for War Machine and Warhammer Hordes, and not expecting it to do quite as well as it had done in the past. This possibly indicates that I was wrong, and War Machine's still going strong. It's weird, because when I look on YouTube, I look on Reddit, and I look at all the discussion places, War Machine seems to be, I want to say an only child, but what I mean is it's not getting the love and from the fan base that I would have expected for it to beat Star Wars Legion. In my head, more people are talking about Star Wars Legion. Now, the problem with that is I'm possibly in a bubble, my little echo chamber, and it's impossible for me to truly know where things lie, and this is why it's always good to have a look at this, just to sort of see where, if your opinion is matching common sense. Star Wars Legion at number 4, that makes sense. Age of Sigmar at number 5. Now, I actually expect Age of Sigmar to overtake Star Wars Legion, at least for the next time this is published. And that makes sense. Star Wars Legion's on its second, Age of Sigmar is on its 2nd edition. It's just had its release, which I think was it's either June or late May, probably not reflected in this. And Star Wars Legion's going to require a long growth before it even gets, before it hits these the dizzying heights. So let's talk about why the figures are on the screen as they are on the screen. Warhammer 40k, that makes perfect sense. I think this is probably a reflection of 8th edition, the consistent codexes, the Dark Imperium box set, all doing fantastically well. The noticeable absentee here is X-Wing. X-Wing has topped this list quite a few times. It's not even in the top 5 at the moment. And that makes sense. With it getting its 2nd edition, it sort of makes sense that maybe the sales figures were dying off, or people are waiting for the 2nd edition. We've had a slowdown in releases that X-Wing isn't featuring, and maybe that's brought again prominence to Warhammer 40k, so that makes perfect sense. If X-Wing is in it, sort of, we're waiting for the 2nd edition peak, and 40k is in the I'm still riding high from the 8th edition buzz, it makes sense that we would get that. I've still got that highlighted, and let me just unhighlight that because I don't care about these D&D miniatures. We're going to just, as I said, we're just going to ignore that. War Machine, as I said, I'm surprised at War Machine. Maybe it's just more popular than I thought. Again, though, I feel like I just can't understand how it's going to be long-term competitive with Legion. I think Legion probably would outlast it, but that and maybe kill it off. But look, the sales figures are not the sales figures, but the stats as far as we can see are there. Star Wars Legion, but why? I mean, it's weird because War Machine had its 3rd edition. I mean, I don't think it was well received. It's weird because I don't know too much about War Machine. So if you do know more about War Machine and you're like, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about, you are correct. But I thought it seemed that War Machine's 3rd edition wasn't particularly well received, and I thought it was just going to slowly like trail off. But there's evidence to the contrary, at least, and I would never claim to be 100% capable of being right all the time. That's nonsense. Star Wars Legion, I would have expected it probably to be number 2 or 3 at its release. Now, they have had a little bit of distribution issues. Quite a few things have gone out of stock, and obviously you can't sell what you don't have available. But maybe it's not selling as well as like people, the companies and stuff like that expected it to. I still think it's probably selling like reasonably well. I've spoken to a few store owners who said it's doing like I won't say guns blazing, but it's done very well. As I said, I would have expected it to be number 2 or 3. I expect that Star Wars Legion will trickle down, that it will go well, depending on what comes out at Gen Con, like immediately tomorrow. But the way that generally sales patterns happen, you get hype, things sort of die off a little bit, and then it gradually builds. You get spikes when new stuff is basically released, especially the big stuff. So Star Wars Legion is in its growth phase. Fans of the game will need to keep buying it, keep drafting in new people, keep having events and tournaments and all that kind of stuff, and it'll probably drop out the list. I think if X-Wing stopped out the list, it'll probably drop out the list, and then it'll slowly creep up and do a bit of Age of Sigmar. Will it ever challenge? I made bold claims being like, I think it'll overtake 40k. At the minute, I'm like, that was a stupid suggestion. I still think it could, but it needs a really good. It's basically got about 2 to 3 years, and if it's not close by that point, it probably will never get close. But it just, like, if you're worried about Star Wars Legion, don't be. It's in its growth phase. New stuff's gonna have to trickle out, and it's gonna grow. Age of Sigmar, I think that's low. I think when we look at the fact it's just had its 2nd edition, which for a game that was doing reasonably well, is gonna bump it up the list. So what I think will probably happen, because I'm not sure X-Wing will be in the next one, because summer will probably be July, August, September, and it comes out late September. So depending on how and when these questions are asked, I sort of suspect Age of Sigmar and 40k will be the dominant one in the summer one, because we've got Kill Team and Age of Sigmar's 2nd edition. And then X-Wing's going to make a triumphant return to this list, probably almost certainly number 1, maybe number 2 because of Kill Team. Obviously, Gen Con could change all of this, but then at the end of the... So yeah, I think for winter, it'll probably be X-Wing. For summer, it's probably going to be 40k and Age of Sigmar. I'm really interested in the dynamic between War Machine and Star Wars Legion. It's sort of like caught me off guard a little bit. Like, I honestly expected Star Wars Legion to be thrashing War Machine, especially at its release. Maybe not in 3 months' time. I think maybe War Machine steady fans would have overcome the dip, and then Legion would overtake it. That was my thoughts. That's not been proven the case. But as I said, Star Wars Legion needs a growth. Like, it's not unusual that products have a massive release, tail off, and then they gradually, like from the roots, build back up. That's perfectly normal. The games that don't do that are stuff like 40k. It's really the only game that I think that probably doesn't have to worry about that. But even that has its boost when it gets new editions and stuff like that. Very interesting that X-Wing completely dropped off. I can't remember when they did the X-Wing report. I think it might have been April maybe the hyperspace report thing when they announced the second edition. But the fact that they're doing a second edition, they probably slowed down their releases. They may have noticed that the sales figures were dropping, and they were like, we need to get this announced and so people know what's coming. That makes sense. I think, you know, X-Wing is a shoe-in for at least a big release, like at least a resurgence. Whether or not how long that lasts or whatever, you will have to wait and see, but pretty much a shoe-in. 40k with Kill Team. I don't think they'll split out Kill Team and 40k because you can't necessarily know. Like, if I'm buying a box of Space Marines, you don't know if that's for 40k or Kill Team. Obviously, the Kill Team core set you can measure, but it wouldn't never be a fair comparison if it's 2 games for the price of 1, basically. But yeah, interesting thoughts. I've rambled on for quite a while about that. Let me know your thoughts. Are you like, what's your community like right now? Is War Machine like big around you guys? Like, I've never even seen anybody play War Machine in any of the places I've been. I hardly ever see anybody mention it. I see Malifaux and Infinity talked about more, but they said that's my echo chamber, my little bubble. What about yours? What do you see? Are you worried about Legion? As I said, I'm not worried about Legion, but are you worried about Legion? And do you think X-Wing's going to make a massive resurgence, obviously, with the second edition? Let me know your thoughts. I'm very interested to hear it. You know what you should do, though? You should like and subscribe. Well, you should like this video and subscribe to this channel. And also have a beautiful day. And goodbye. Bye.